There is a vegetable that produces food for 15 years from a single planting, another that walks across your garden, replanting itself year after year with no seeds, no work, and no permission. There is a leafy green that fed European peasants for 5,000 years before the supermarket replaced it. Then, between 1880 and 1920, they vanished from seed catalogs across the Western world. Not because they failed, not because anything better replaced them. They vanished because the seed industry could not figure out how to sell you the same plant twice. Welcome to Forgotten Roots. The archive opens. The vegetables you grow today are almost all annuals. Tomatoes, lettuce, beans, pepper, squash. You buy the seed in spring, the plant dies in fall. You buy the seed again next spring. This is not how humanity ate for most of history. For thousands of years, the kitchen garden was anchored by perennials, plants that returned on their own, year after year with almost no input. The shift to all annuals happened in a specific window. Industrial seed companies emerged. Mail-order catalogs replaced kitchen garden traditions. And the math became simple. A plant you sell once is a customer you keep forever. A plant you sell every year is a customer who pays you forever. The perennials had to go. Most are still alive somewhere. Most are easier to grow than anything in your grocery store, and every single one of them is missing from the seed packets at your local hardware store. Here are 9 of them. Plant number 7 is the one big seed cannot legally put in a paper envelope. Plant number 1, asparagus. The grandfather of perennial vegetables and the only one most people still recognize. Plant a crown in well-drained soil in your second coldest spring and walk away. By year 3, you start cutting spears. By year 5, you are harvesting 25 spears per crown every single April. A properly maintained asparagus bed produces for 15 to 20 years. Some heritage beds in Europe have been producing continuously since before the First World War. Asparagus survived the Great Purge for one reason. It is so well known that erasing it would have been suspicious. But notice this. Almost nobody plants it at home. Almost everyone buys it at the supermarket for $14 a pound. A vegetable so productive it could pay for itself in a single season has been quietly reframed as something exotic that comes from California. Plant a $25 bed of crowns, eat for a generation. Plant number 2, sea kale. If asparagus is the survivor, sea kale is the casualty. In 1830 in London, sea kale was the most fashionable vegetable in England. Blanched white under terracotta forcing pots, sold at Covent Garden for prices that would shock you today, served at the table of Queen Victoria. Thomas Jefferson grew it at Monticello and ranked it above asparagus. It is a true perennial cabbage. Plant it once. Harvest blanched shoots every spring for 20 years. It thrives on neglect. It tolerates salt, drought, sand, wind, and frost. By 1950, it had been almost completely erased from English gardens. The reason is not nutrition. The reason is wartime rationing combined with a seed industry that pivoted to faster, more profitable crops the moment the boats came home. Plant number 3, sorrel, a leafy green that tastes like a lemon. Picture an arugula that returns every spring with no seed and no fuss for 20 years. That is French sorrel. Medieval European peasants use it for everything. Soups, sauces, salad bowls, the famous green sauce that traveled with armies. It is alive in your local hardware store as exactly one tiny packet of seeds tucked behind the parsley. Most Americans have never tasted it. The reason is simple. Sorrel is a perennial. The agricultural supply industry could not commodify a plant that hands you free salad greens every year for 2 decades. So it was simply not promoted, not banned, not destroyed, just not promoted. And that is enough. If you have not subscribed yet, hit that button now because the next 6 plants only get more buried. Plant number 4, Egyptian walking onions. This one is closer to a small miracle than a vegetable. Egyptian walking onions do not flower like normal onions. They produce a cluster of tiny bulblets at the very top of their stalk. The stalk grows tall, gets heavy, and then literally falls over. The bulblets touch the ground 6 inches away from the parent. They root. They grow. The plant has, in a sense, walked. One small starter clump becomes a permanent self-replanting onion patch. There is no seed packet for this plant. There cannot be. It does not produce viable seed. It propagates only through bulb division and aerial cloning. That fact alone explains its disappearance from commercial catalogs. The onion industry moves billions of dollars in seed and starter sets every year. A plant that hands you free onions for 20 years from a single $5 starter is not a product. It is a competitor, and competitors get quietly removed from the shelf. Plant number 5, skirret, the lost root vegetable of Tudor England. Skirret was the favorite vegetable of the Roman Empire, Emperor Tiberius. He demanded it from Germany as part of imperial tribute. It anchored the dinner tables of medieval monasteries. In 1677, the gentleman gardener John Worledge called it, quote, the sweetest, whitest, and most pleasant of roots. It tasted somewhere between a parsnip and a carrot, with a delicate sweetness that survived no commercial transport, and that is exactly why it died. The food historian Mark Meltonville at Historic Royal Palaces puts it bluntly: skirret is not a commercial crop. The roots are slender. The harvest is fiddly. The shipping is impossible. The potato is easier. So the potato won. By the 1800s, skirret was gone from cookbooks, not because it tasted bad, because it was inconvenient to the people who profit from food. Plant number 6, good King Henry, also called Lincolnshire spinach, also called poor man's asparagus. This perennial has fed humans since the Bronze Age more than 5,000 years ago. It produces tender shoots in spring that you harvest like asparagus, then leaves all summer that you cook like spinach, then flower spikes that you steam like broccoli. 3 different vegetables from one plant for 30 straight years. Medieval peasants depended on it. Lincolnshire grandmothers swore by it. Then, at the turn of the 20th century, commercial agriculture discovered that annual spinach could be planted, harvested, and resold every 10 weeks. Good King Henry, which produces continuously for decades, was reframed. It was demoted from crop to weed. Today, most gardeners encounter it only as something that volunteers in their compost pile, and they pull it out without knowing what it is. 5,000 years of survival ended in 25 years of deliberate forgetting. Plant the next 2, and you are eating greens that predate written history. Plant number 7, tree collards, a 6-foot-tall perennial cabbage that produces blue-green leaves for 15 years from a single planting in California gardens. They taste sweeter than annual collards because the multi-year roots build sugars the way a fruit tree does. They are cold hardy, down to 20 degrees. They are drought tolerant. They are productive. And here's the part that explains everything. Tree collards do not produce viable seed. They are propagated exclusively through cuttings. You break off a branch, you stick it in soil, you have a new tree. There is, on Earth, no seed packet that contains tree collards. There never will be. There never can be. This is precisely why most American gardeners have never heard of them. A plant the seed industry physically cannot package is a plant the seed industry will not promote. Tree collards pass person to person, cutting to cutting, for over a century in the gardens of immigrants, urban farmers, and old hippies in Northern California. The plant survives because it bypasses the catalog entirely. Find one cutting, and you have ended your relationship with the kale aisle for the rest of your life. Plant number 8, sunchokes, also called Jerusalem artichokes, a native North American sunflower that produces a knobbly, edible tuber underground. Native peoples cultivated them across the eastern half of the continent for centuries before European arrival. A single 10-foot row of sunchokes planted once produces up to 200 pounds of tubers per harvest every fall indefinitely. They are nutritionally outstanding, high in inulin, friendly to gut bacteria, and consumed by diabetics in 19th century Europe as a legitimate medical food. They survive Zone 3 winters. They reject pesticides because they reject everything, and they are nearly impossible to permanently kill. That last fact is exactly why farmers and seed companies hate them. A plant that returns from a single missed tuber every year for decades is not a crop. It is what agribusiness calls a noxious nuisance. So it has been quietly pushed out of mainstream gardening, framed as invasive, mocked as the fart vegetable, and forgotten. A plant that fed entire native nations is now treated as a weed. Plant number 9. Lovage. Imagine celery, but 6 feet tall, more flavorful, completely perennial, and asking nothing of you. Roman soldiers carried lovage across the empire. Medieval monks grew it in every monastery garden in Europe as both food and medicine. Renaissance cookbooks listed it in dozens of soups and stews. It tastes like a deeper, more aromatic celery, and one cluster of plants will season your kitchen for 30 years. Then in the 1930s, commercial celery production exploded. Lovage had a fatal flaw. It is too strong to eat raw and too tall to ship. Celery was milder, blander, easier to bag. So lovage was retired. Cookbook by cookbook, packet by packet, it was edited out of the modern kitchen. It is still alive in your grandmother's herb book and in a few obsessive permaculture nurseries. Plant 1. Eat from it longer than your mortgage. So why are these 9 plants buried? It is not a single conspiracy. There is no one villain in a boardroom signing a document. The reality is more honest and more permanent. Modern agriculture is built on recurring revenue. Seed companies need to sell seeds every year. Nurseries need to sell starts every spring. Supermarkets need to sell vegetables every week. A plant that is planted once and feeds you for 20 years is, from the perspective of every link in that chain, an enemy. So the perennials were not banned. They were simply not promoted. They were not cataloged. They were not advertised. They were left to fade out of memory, while annual replacements with shorter shelf lives, faster turnover, and easier shipping were marketed at full volume. The result is the modern produce aisle, a parade of vegetables that need to be regrown every season, on land that needs to be retilled, with seeds that need to be rebought, in a cycle that quietly costs the average gardening household hundreds of dollars every single year. But the plants are still alive. Asparagus crowns are still sold for $10 a piece. Sea kale is being revived by English heritage gardeners. Sorrel hides in your local hardware store. Egyptian walking onion bulblets ship for the price of lunch. Skirret seeds exist in 3 small farms across the United States. Good King Henry is in every serious heirloom seed library. Tree collards travel cutting to cutting through gardening clubs the way they have for 100 years. Sunchokes thrive in any neglected corner you give them. Lovage waits in the back row of every herb nursery for someone who knows the name. None of these plants need permission to exist. None of them needed seed companies to survive. Every one of them is a quiet act of refusal, a plant that says, no, you cannot sell me twice. You cannot bury knowledge that lives in roots. You cannot erase a vegetable that walks. The harvest belongs to the people who plant it. If this opens something for you, hit subscribe and ring the bell. Every comment, every share, every plant put in the ground keeps the archive alive. The next vault opens soon.